question.
Yeah.
There was a serious omission in my talk.
Okay.
My entire thing that I did is courtesy of the Rhode Island Foundation, Robert and Margaret McCall Johnson Fellowship. So I forgot to say that. And none of it would have happened if I hadn't had that support. I created 4 full-time jobs for people who helped me with that thing, with that grant. So, I was sort of rattled when I started talking, and that's where that funding went. It went to employ those 4 women who made the piece with me. So, take it away, Marcel.
Oh, I think
Oh, yeah. I understand that Distant Mirrors took 1/6 of one bale.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
There are
curious.
some marathon bottles in there too.
Oh, as a geographer, I'm glad from different places. But what I'm wondering is if this relationship that the 2 of you, have forged for Distant Mirrors, if and how it might develop in the future.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really interests me is sort of where it all goes. I mean, the very first day I was there, I saw them packing the trucks. And I'm interested in the markets because, well, we were talking about this before the talk, but there was one day early in the summer when we were still cleaning the bottles, and I think I emailed Marcel. I was like, how much of this comes in every day? And he emailed back 4.7 tons. And I just went, oh my God, I can't get out of bed in the morning anymore. So I emailed Marcel. I said, this is so depressing. I don't even know what to do with myself. How do you remain just even the tiny glimmer of optimism? And what did you say, Marcel?
Well,
he said, no problem.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is that there's great possibility and great potential because we barely tapped the industry, and if we can get the word out to more and more people to get them to understand why it's important, then we could be a show place in the country with once we get this system up and running. And on the education side, we have some very talented individuals, Sarah Kite, who's my boss, and Crystal Noiza, who is the education manager. They're very good at getting the word out and turning over those stones to the, getting the message out to the majority is simple. It's getting it out to the smaller groups that, whoever they are, getting them to understand how to contribute. That's the hard part, but they're very good at that. So,
but there's markets there too. So, I mean, one of the things that fascinated me was like I saw this truck being packed, and it's being sold to, is it Wellspun in North Carolina?
Wellman.
Wellman, sorry,
Yeah.
Wellman. And they are, they take it, turn it into pellets, which is interesting because that's a bunch of little spheres. So every sphere is much easier to clean. You can hit all the surfaces, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's turned into hundreds of tiny little spheres, pellets, and then that is turned into fiber. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if I were to have a chapter 2 for this, I'm really interested, and I don't think it's going to happen with this piece, but I would love to turn my work into textiles by developing a kind of artistic / commercial relationship. Because I'm interested in that. I'm interested in what happens next. Because where I get depressed and can't get out of bed in the morning, Marcel sees great opportunity for new markets, new products, new customers, and it seems like that turning plastic into textiles thing is still happening here. I mean, it was actually invented. What's the name of the place in Lawrence? But I don't know. It's Malden Mills in Lawrence, yeah. And so that's one of the things that America can still you know, we still got our finger on it, whereas the paper products are going to China.
Yes,
Your paper is being baled and
Predominantly.
sold as raw material to China.
correct.
So the paper end of the recycling thing is heading out. But this plastics into textiles thing is still here. And because it was started so locally, I just haven't had the gumption to do what I did with you, which is walk in cold and shake your hand and everything. I haven't had the gumption to walk into a big textile plastics place and try to get it rolling. But you know, tomorrow's a new day. So.
Yeah.
Marcel,
If I get out of bed tomorrow.
I think, yeah, maybe be able to help you with that. Find someone who,
And I don't know how to answer it beyond that, but yes.
So, Al, I have a question for you, and it's what you talked about earlier about this tension between, regarding distant mirrors, sort of your conceptual.
Yeah, I
Versus
forgot.
your-
Yeah, I forgot to talk about that too.
Yeah, I want
It's too much to
to, well,
talk
so the idea that conceptually you could buy into the piece, gathering garbage and what that communicated,
Mhm.
but, you know, artistically, you were very protective of the work, and I think that overlapping area or intersection for artists who are beginning to, you know, sort of move into different areas is a critical.
Right, because I've had to let go. I mean, now, honestly, the ducks own that thing, so they've been pooping all over it, and the sculpture looks like it's been smoking. It has like, what looks like nicotine stains. Well, I don't know if that's from the thousands of cigarette butts that shelter in its harbors every day. You know, when you get close, it's syringes, butts, bottles, Dunkin' Donuts, you name it, and you know, there's only one squirrel who committed suicide in the water.
But it's a process of letting go.
I had to let go because it was collecting so much trash in the first location, which everybody thought was so cool, except for me.
Right.
And then there were people who were like, hey, document it and collect it and have a show with all the trash. And I was like, I'm not keeping that dead squirrel. You know, you have no idea how like gritty this is. I mean, the water fire guys that, you know, I persuaded them to go out in the boats because I had to get up close to clean it. And they're so over it. They're like, oh yeah, we get pink eye the first day in the spring when we go out there. And I actually did get that, I think, a week ago. But I've had to let go because now it isn't that same kind of trash, although it is. The big piece, the map, is like baleen. It's like a filter. It's a filter structure, and it is a filter. The others, with all their little nooks and crannies, are like harbors. They harbor things. And so, yeah, I just had to realize that it was made with an act of very rigorous recuperation, and then part of the cycle is letting it go into this dirty, filthy life cycle that it is a part of.
But it's not a negative path, I don't think. I mean, it started as
Not for anyone except for
sculpture.
me, but
But no, it started functioning as a filter, and you know, so.
yeah, I know. No, I know. Yes.
Did it start with preparatory drawings?
I didn't have a lot of time, actually. I really, when I got the McCall Johnson Fellowship, I resolved that I would do the work within 2011. I would capture that time. And there was a bit of floundering at the middle. I mean, I'm sorry, well, middle, beginning and end, I suppose. But I had made a very nice friendship with the Roger Williams National Park site because I have faculty who are working in that site, and I heard, you know, one of the talks being given about the historical map, and I hadn't thought about going that far back actually as the seedling for the piece, but it was funny. I knew Barnaby Evans and I had determined that the site for the piece, and we had determined, there's Barnaby, hey, just so you know. We had determined that the minimum size had to be 32 feet for that site, and I was feeling completely overwhelmed. I didn't know how I could, how many mornings of 5:30 a.m. that would be for me. I was freaking out. And when I heard Jen Smith talk about this map, and I looked at it at the Athenaeum, I realized that half of it wasn't there. 50% of it was there, and 50% of it wasn't there. So I could get twice the length for half the material. And it really was pragmatically driven forward. It was sort of an intersection of an intellectual thought and a pragmatic urgency. And then, you know, I plunged in, started making it, and the $1 million question arose in July in a conversation with John McNiff, the other park ranger. I said, it's all well and good, John, but what does this have to do with the 21st century oil economy, which is what my work is made of and about? He said, easy. That was easy. I went, really? Short day at the office for me. Do tell. And he said, well, it started off with this gift from the Narragansetts, the tight posse of believers, the egalitarian distribution. Two things happened. Within a very short amount of time from within, people were jockeying for power, position, and more. And then things really went to hell in a handbasket in the relationship with the Native communities. There were some singular acts of violence, one person killed, another person killed, and then a white retaliation where an entire village with several hundred people of mothers and children all burned to the ground in one night. You know, so the escalation from the white side made the native, the friendly native population, and I think rightly so, refused to distinguish between good white people and bad white people, because up until this time, Roger Williams was fluent in the language and was being used as a shuttle diplomat. And he was an ambassador, and then it was like, okay, you're screwed. And that settlement was burned to the ground. So not just tensions from within, but, you know, intense, escalated violence between an original population and those, you know, jockeying for the use of the resources. And I thought, wow, sounds familiar. And John is really an amazing person too. He said, it started with a thesis, the separation of church and state. There was an antithesis, and now you're working with a synthetic material. I think that's very expressive. So yeah, that was a short day at the office for me. He's very brilliant, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I just heard him speak the other day.
He's great.
He let me wear his hat.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Pardon if this sounds too much like a thunder question, but what would you say, how has your practice changed as an artist as a result of this?
This particular project has been, I mean, you can probably tell it's been a huge explosion. The you know, dive into what I think of as the source, which is the Rhode Island Recovery Corporation. That was a huge jump in scale for me. I mean, there's just no comparison between this delicate extraction of stuff from people's bins. There's no comparison. I mean, this is gritty, intense, and huge for me. And, it's the smallest state in the country. Then the other big, and a huge jump in scale because of the site. Another big jump for me was the thing that I have like a nose pressed against the window thing about visualization of data. I think it's beautiful and cool, and I could sooner fly to the moon than do that. I kind of don't know how to do it. So Panapa Prakamakul took that on, the assistant from, she had just graduated from landscape architecture, she's from Bangkok. And I could just take a bath in that every day. I mean, I just think that is a big deal for me. To take that telescopic lens, that analysis of our intimate labor, water, time, bodies working, and just dial it out in that. We wanted it in the website to be just a scrolling horizon line, because the work is flat and sits on the water. And you know, that data thing is not perfect, but it's what I think about. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about how my intimate labor is connected to something on the other side of the world, which brings me to that, you know, that first photograph. All this work is about trying to feel with my own fingertips what kind of an impact I'm having very far away. And I just can't do that myself. So that was a big deal to open myself up. I love working with landscape architects. Rose Height from Wellesley College came to me from what they have called the Center for Work and Service, and her skills were digital and video. And then Diane Hubbard is a painter, actually, and she had been my assistant throughout the year. And that's why we did those videos on the website too, because the piece is very much about labor too. And I was really interested in horizontal labor. So we all did the filthy, nasty stuff together, and we all did the fun, cool stuff together. But different skill sets kicked in. So Panapa did the data sheet, because I can't. Rose edited the videos, because I don't know how to use a video camera, et cetera, et cetera. So we all had our strengths kicking in. But it was very rigorous. It was 40 hours a week with 15 minutes in the morning, half an hour for lunch, and 15 minutes in the afternoon. And not a day went by when those ladies weren't just lined up outside the studio at like 8 o'clock. They were never even late for a minute. So it was intense. We were working factory hours, but then I showed them, I was modeling sustainable labor. Because there's no all-nighters, no binging, no falling apart and losing your sleep in your body, nothing like that. It was like athletic. And I'm really into that. I really want, that's part of the work too.
Sorry.
Cap it.
Okay,
I'm
I'm
done.
and that is
No, I thought it's 11:30.
the data set, Ellen, you said isn't perfect, and I'm wondering.
Well, it's not perfect because Panapa's not in there.
But I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, as artists begin to generate information as a result of their investigations, and that information isn't perfect scientifically, but it has sort of a combination of both qualitative and quantitative. I guess, you know, I'm just raising that issue, and whether or not that kind of information will be embraced. Do you know what I mean? If it's not perfect, if it's not perfectly analytical and quantitative, but it's
Well, it's
information.
based on statistics I read in books.
Yeah.
So to that extent, if those people's fact checkers and editors are doing their job, then it's as perfect as what I can gather from good sources,
Yeah.
if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But some might say that for us to use that much water to clean those bottles was a dreadful sin against nature, you see.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are complex issues, and that's what I mean by not perfect. Everything is shaggy,
Yeah.
but that's because it is. So, I don't know, that's, yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it's, I don't know why else I would say it's not perfect. Maybe because it's so hard for me. I like I said, it's like just imagine with my nose against a candy store window, so I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Mapping is cool, I can't do maps.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Roger Williams did.
I know, exactly. Thank you for that, Roger.
So it's about 11:30, which
Yes.
is where we decided we would end up.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Perfect.